Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Journey Forward with Jory Rose. Oh gosh, you guys are going to be in for a treat today because we are going to have a conversation that I know is going to spark some excitement, emotions, thoughts, feelings, because I know that my conversation with Susan Maruffo, my guest today, is going to bring up a lot of deep things to talk about, things that we need to consider, things that we can help use to heal. And I am so grateful for my guest who is coming to me all the way across the world. She's be so kind to be up at 5 a.m. Thank you, Susan Maruffo, for being here. Good morning to you.
Thank
You're
you.
coming to us all the way from the future.
Yeah, that's funny. I say that sometimes. I'm calling from the future.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jory. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and have the opportunity to talk with you and your audience. So, yes, it's early.
Introduce yourself, please. And I would love to know your journey of how you got to where you are. And you very clearly embody many passions that you are traveling the world teaching. So I would love to know how you arose at what your passion and purpose and calling has been.
Okay, wow. What a journey forward, right?
Yes.
It's been a journey. So my name is Susan Maruffo, and I am the founder of Samasara Center, which is a community of seekers. And we meet online, and we also meet in person. So I teach in person, I do in-person retreats, and I also have a membership where we meet regularly online to practice meditation. So I am a meditation teacher, I am a yoga teacher, and I am a facilitator of self-inquiry and shadow work, intimacy work. So Yoga, Sex, and Death is a course I've created. So I'm also the creator and facilitator of a course called Yoga, Sex, and Death. And that might feel
nothing dark about that.
It's so early.
Do some nice stretches and stuff. Oh yeah, this is going to be deeper than that. Yoga, sex, and death.
Yes, and
tell me more.
Okay, Jory. Yeah, it does feel early, right, for me to start talking, just diving right in, but meaning early in the morning. It's like, okay. So, my journey, this course, Yoga, Sex, and Death, is really based on my own personal journey. It echoes everything that I have experienced since maybe 2010. And the curriculum has changed over the years. I've been teaching it since 2014, and it has changed and evolved as my own personal journey has changed and evolved and shifted. So it's taken on many life forms, many different iterations. I was married and working in advertising. So we're going way back because this is the journey. This has been the journey for me. I was married. I was working in advertising. I was living in Dallas, Texas, and this was in my 20s. And I felt very empty inside, but I had all the things externally that everyone had told me my whole life I should have. You know, it's one of these stories.
I have the same one. My listeners know my story. Same thing. Check the boxes.
That's it.
Unfulfilled, but it's all like, logical on paper. What do we do
Yes.
with that? We shatter it.
That's the death.
Yep.
That's it. That was the first place, that kind of ego death, right? Where this identity that I had built my whole life around, this person's wife, these people's daughter, these, this employee or this manager of people, or all of these different roles that I had really mastered, really learned to play. And because I was so
we get good at them.
Oh my goodness. Everything became about just, who do you need me to be? Who do you need me to be in this moment?
Yeah.
And who do you need me to be in this moment? And I was really good at serving up what I thought people needed. Yeah. And it was innocent. I really always like to orient around this concept, this idea of innocence, meaning just doing the best I could at the time. I believed it. I believed that if I gave people what they wanted, I would get love and approval and appreciation. And I forgot about my own approval and appreciation in the process.
I'm going to interject for a second, because I think what you said deserves some spaciousness around it. I know the majority of our audience are women, and the majority of women I've worked with, and I imagine you as well, this is not an unfamiliar story, which is why it resonates so deeply.
Yes.
And, it mirrors the ubiquitous, we were sold a bill of goods, that we all didn't know better, partly because the previous generation perhaps was okay with that bill of goods, right? That as we've evolved over time, our needs, our awareness, our desires, our independence has also evolved, but there's no model to say you don't have to follow this path to be successful or happy or content or abundant or have a family, right? It doesn't have to look a certain way.
I feel that.
I think for any woman who's read Untamed, it's that line of like, wasn't it supposed to be better than this? Like, daggers through the core of our soul of, it's supposed to be better than this, because it's not a straight shot out of the gate when you don't know who you are. Like, it makes no sense. Who designed this?
That's exactly the place that I found myself in. I thought, I have all the things, check, and I'm miserable. And I was, at the time, I was drinking myself to death. I really was just drinking and to numb. And so I felt very disconnected from my own body. And it's traumatic. I think what you're describing, or at least in my own experience, that disconnect from what I feel and who I am internally versus the image of myself that I think I should be. The distance between those two spaces is these little traumas daily of betrayal of myself and
self-abandonment, as I call it.
Absolutely. That abandoning self. And it just becomes a way of being that I just didn't even know I was doing it. I didn't even know it was happening until I had, I always say, when the pain of your life begins to outweigh the fear of change, something shifts.
Do you know that a nine in quote? This quote changed my life, but the day came when the risk to remain tight in a blossom or tight in a bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom.
Yes, that's
that quote describes exactly what you just said. And that was one of my propellers to help push me forward. Because again, you're naming something more women experience than I think they allow themselves to actually acknowledge.
Yes. It's so scary. It's so scary, I remember at the time thinking, what would if I changed my life, if I quit drinking, who would my friends be? What would we do? Would my husband leave me? I mean, just thinking, I don't want any of this to change. I was still too afraid. I was very afraid. And I I could not even fathom what life would look like on the other side. And, that's also another reason why I talk about the ripening. It's like you can't force the river. You can't from that place. There's no way you could know what's on the other side. And to think about it and project it in your mind can oftentimes just bring a lot of fear and anxiety of like, I want to make a change, but I have no idea, and I don't really want anything to change, and it can seem so overwhelming and scary. So it's just like, you know what? You're not that person yet. So you can't look at that place from this point of view and it makes sense. So you just stay where you are, put one foot in front of the other, and just show up one breath at a time. That's all you can do. And then there's a natural unfolding that you just really can't know. And you don't have to worry about it. Just put one foot in front of the other. And I remember when I was telling my husband, he's my ex-husband now, but when I made the decisions I made to quit my job, to move to Spain, to physically leave the marriage at that point, we were still in the marriage, but we had taken some physical space and I moved away. And at the time, we didn't know how long it was going to be. And I remember everybody just thinking, Susan, you've lost your shit. Like you have lost it. Like, what are you doing? You have the perfect husband, you have the perfect job. What is happening? There was just like, I felt this like shitstorm around me, my parents, my family, my friends. And
how old were you at this point?
I was 29. It was right before my 30th birthday. And I remember feeling like this feeling where I was in the eye of a storm, where everything was very quiet and calm. But everything around me, I was aware, was just like in upheaval and spinning and moving. And everyone around me was like, what are you doing? What's happening? What's going on? Because they felt uncomfortable with me.
They couldn't tolerate you coloring outside the lines.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my gosh, there's so much of our journey that is similar. The details obviously different, but that when someone embodies the fearlessness to go against the grain, against the expectation, against the path that was believed to be laid out in front of them, and chart new territory to say, you know what, I'm going to unapologetically trust my intuition and follow the path to the unknown.
Yes.
It's threatening to other people's sense of security because they're like, oh shit, she looked like she had it all.
Yes.
And if she's unhappy, what does that mean about the life I am living? Wait, am I really happy? It's threatening to see people create change in such a hopefully dramatic way, right? To let go of what seems to be perfect.
Yes.
And for others to not feel shaken to their core. It's confronting.
Right. It is confronting, and I understand it completely because I was confronted with it for so long. I was so scared that I could understand, especially when it's those people closest to you, like a partner or your parents, that it's like the narrative starts shifting, the identity starts shifting, and it's been so solidified over a lifetime of this is who you are in this context. And this is who I am. Mm-hmm. And I'm not looking to change my role. It's like one person starts shifting and changing because it feels too tight, like the quote. It just feels too tight. And they start shifting and changing. And so all of the interconnectedness, all of the interconnected roles, they start to change because we are all so connected. And so it's like, but wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up for you to play this role. I signed up for you to be this person. And if you change, I'm confronted with, well, do I jump or do I go along for the ride? Do I stay on board with this person, do the work that I think it's going to take on my part, on myself, to stay close, to stay intimate, Or do I decide I'm jumping off this train? And so they're confronted, I think, with what do I do and who do I be now?
How do
What
I
role do I
respond?
play?
Right. Do
Yeah.
I have to change also?
Yes. And it's scary. And I acknowledge I really can have compassion for that part also, because that was me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get the fear. And I get that they didn't ask for it. And so it's like a little bit of that disruptor energy.
I imagine your ex-husband and my ex-husband would have had some good conversations.
Yeah. Well, we remained very, very close after those years, and we still are to this day. There's a lot of love there because I think he understood. He's a special human being, and I think he understood. He had an up close, a front row seat to the suffering that I was going through in life, the ways I was just really trying to make things fit and trying to make everyone happy and didn't want to disappoint anyone. And I think he saw it. And as much as he loved me and wanted to be together, I think he knew that if I stayed, it was just going to be really more detrimental than it actually had been. I mean, to me, yeah. So,
and isn't that honestly the definition of true love, to be able to not have the attachment of what I want for you, but to honor the path that you're on? And my ex-husband and I actually are very much in the same, he wasn't thrilled in the beginning, but now recognizes we're both where we need to be. And
yes,
we still travel together with our kids post-divorce because we put high priority on this is still our family and we are their parents. But just because we are not married doesn't mean we can't show up together. And that takes a commitment to the bigger picture and getting your ego out of the way to say, but this hurts, or I didn't want this. It's not to say that doesn't happen, but ultimately there's a choice you can make, and especially when there's kids involved.
And that's this other element of the kids, kids involved. I don't have kids, but I work with so many women that, just as you said, have been through a similar situation and have children. And it's a whole other level of, well, what do we do and what is the bigger picture? So I also think it is this evolution that's happening. Things are different for us than they were for our parents. And a lot of the way I feel I have reacted to my life, and hopefully I'm now much more responsive than reactive, is because of the way I grew up, is because of the way my parents were. And so in a lot of ways, it just is that natural evolution. And I imagine with your children now, the work that you have done on yourself and the healing, it changes the entire dynamic of the family. It changes the physiology, the fabric of the family system. And
it shifts it from transgenerational patterns too.
Yes, absolutely. The DNA, what's in your cells, shifts and changes. And I believe that 100%. It's like when one person, I was just talking about this, a little bit of this disruptor energy that I feel like every family has one, at least, where there is some of that disruptor energy where it's like, I can't help but say what is true for me. It's like I can't help but say the emperor is not wearing any clothes, right? It's like I see clearly it's not, the emperor's not wearing clothes, and I'm not going to pretend like he is. And I can't say that he is. I just can't. I can't keep the lie together.
Can I read you a quote that I think needs to be shared? And I'm going to pull it up really quick because it is one of my most favorite quotes, but it speaks to this idea of the willingness to be the disruptor, to break the patterns, comes with a consequence, right? It's not just our own personal evolution we're seeking to forge the path on, but it's going to come with the consequence. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. So how do you live with that awareness? And that's the beauty and the curse of, not curse, but the shadow of awareness, right? Like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And this is a quote by R.D. Laing, and it says, they are playing a game. They are playing a game at not playing a game. If I show them I see they are, I shall break the rules and they will punish me. I must play their game of not seeing I see the game. And we get stuck in that pattern. I'm going to pretend like I don't see it to follow the rules. Because if I show them that I know that they're playing some sort of game of whether it's inauthenticity or whether it's being the expected roles that, you know, people want you to be, or whether it's just out of fear, or I mean, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Expectations. But once you see, you can't unsee it. And the disruptor is the one who's willing to say, hey, I see that you're playing this and you're going to punish me for calling me out, but I can't no longer name it or live in my own truth by being a contributing member of the game.
That's it. That's
Is that
it.
too esoteric? Like, I mean, I'm hoping everyone's catching on, but like, that's waking up.
Yeah.
That's awareness. That's
waking up.
living, right?
Yes. I mean, for me it is. And I do think everyone's just on a different trip, you know. I feel like that path, it just looks so different for everyone. And I trust that everyone is figuring it out and they are on their path. And I just know that for me, I've got to stay in integrity with what my truth is. Just like you said, like, what is it for me? What is it for me? And I've got to be honest about it and stay really close and stay really intimate with it, because for so many generations, and just if I just keep it to this life, I have been conditioned to stay disconnected from what the bodily sense is, what it is for me. What is it for me? What is the truth in here, in my heart? So disembodied and very disconnected and dissociated from that truth. And so we're talking about, this is not a small thing that we're talking about. We're talking about generations. We're talking about a train moving at 100 miles per hour and just having the courage to jump off of it. And it's a lot of momentum is what I'm saying. There's so much momentum. Hundreds of years of momentum going in one direction. And so to say, you know, I've got to stop this and I've got to look inside, it can be really terrifying for some people. And it was really terrifying for me. But also the pain of my life was just so great that I was like, I will take it. I don't know what's on the other side, but if there's a chance that it's better than this,
it's got to be better than this.
If there's the slightest chance that it's better than this, I've got to jump. And that's what I told my ex-husband at the time. I said, I do not know what's on the other side. I cannot say that we will be together. I cannot say that we won't. But I do know that if I stay, I have used every tool, everything I know. I was in therapy. I had done everything that my conscious mind knew or had been taught to do, and I was drowning. So I had to try something different. I had to throw myself out because I didn't have the role models. I didn't have that. And just like you said, Jory. And so I just thought, well, I'm just going to throw myself out into the world and do something that I have never done or seen done in my family, just to see, well, I know what I don't like, but I'm going to start trying some other things and figure out what it is I do. Well, and I have no idea
and
what's on the other side.
That's our inner guidance that, again, I think many people are afraid to tune into and tap into and honor is anytime we don't like something, that's really valuable information. And we tend to spin on, but I don't like it, but I don't like it, but I don't like it, rather than say, oh, interesting, I don't like that. I wonder if there's something I do like. Or perhaps it's some form of the opposite. If I don't like this, then perhaps this is what I'm trying to understand through this experience. But we don't often take that next step to see how the upheaval is leading us towards something. We tend to just spin on the upheaval or the minutia of complaining or rumination or externalizing, because that is also what connects us to others who are also unhappy. And so there's the friends at the bar who are joining you in that narrative. There's the frustrated, quote, housewives, right? Whether you're career or not, but that role of being a wife in which you feel unfulfilled or not fully yourself, right? There's comfort in that rumination and staying in the midst of the upheaval.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's why community is so important. That's why it's been so important for me to create community, be in community, and have people, like-minded people around you, just to help with that field, build a field of energy. And I mean, you know, the course that I teach is called Yoga, Sex, and Death, right? So it is one of those things where if you do feel a little bit like those words, that's all of that is triggering. It's like, those are the people that are meant.
Maybe we're supposed to be a little triggered to feel.
Yeah, you know, with gentle we go. It sounds very intense, but it is a trauma-informed course, and we go very gently and very subtly, but we go very deep. And I think a lot of women that have come to the course say things like, every name in the title scared me, and that's how I knew I was meant to do it. And because there's something here for me, there's potent medicine. This is my medicine. And I have the courage to go and look in a safe environment, in a place,
of course,
that feels good and safe. And I have a community to do that.
But part of what you know, what I said a moment ago of embracing the fear or stepping into that resistance is because, again, that's information. If it's jarring something in you, then that edge is a place to consider where the growth lies. And if we stay in resistance of what's uncomfortable, then we don't grow, right? And I love that phrase of that which we resist persists. And so if we avoid what we're in resistance to, well, then we're going to stay where we are.
Yes. So
tell me a little bit more about Yoga, Sex, and Death.
Well, it is a course designed to help you find your voice underneath all of the expectations, the conditioning, the beliefs around who you're supposed to be. It takes you to the core. It's you with you. It's an intimacy with yourself and learning to hear your own voice and learning to give it an expression and learning to love yourself. And so that is the course. We examine the themes of death and sexuality through a yogic lens.
Say more. That sounds interesting, but I'm curious to know more.
So it is designed in 3 parts. There's part 1, which is yoga, part 2, which is sex, and part 3, which is death. And the whole course is weaved around 2 central themes: intimacy and letting go. Those are the 2 themes that connect all 3 of those things: yoga, sex, and death. And also all 3 of them, they act as a portal. They're portals towards that which is beyond the limited self. You know, the idea that I have of myself that we were talking, like, who am I? And all 3 of them are portals to that that space inside that is the truth.
Yeah.
The thing that does not change, the thing that is beyond personality, is beyond conditionings, beyond beliefs. Like, who are you? Who are you? Who's in there?
Yeah.
Who's in there?
Not our roles, but who we are at our core, right? And I think women especially confuse that, thinking our roles are who we are rather than our sense of identity based maybe either on values or core beliefs or core needs, or I mean, how else would you define that, what that inner truth is?
Well, that's it. I ask questions. So I'm an inquiry-based teacher, which means that my job is to hold a space for people to go inside of themselves and find the answers there, because that's the only place you can find them, in my experience anyway. In my experience. So I can't tell them what to do, or I'm not there to give them more concepts and more beliefs and more things to hold on to and grasp. It's really about, there's nowhere to go but here. And that is a whole different direction to move in. It's really our whole lives, we've been running away from that, distracting from it, scared shitless of, like, if I stop and actually feel what's here, I will start crying and I will never stop. You know, that kind of fear that keeps us running. And it's a lie. It's a lie that it's the fear talking, and fear is a lie.
And it's also a powerful motivator for many people to not slow down and feel.
Yes. And, you know, when I say fear is a lie, I definitely don't mean, there can be a lot of useful things that fear is there to name and protect us. And there's a lot of wisdom in these trauma responses that most of us live our lives in reaction to, innocent. And so wise. There's so much wisdom in the body to, you know, just wanting to protect us. And then there just comes a time when every person on their own decides, okay, and this is enough. I'm ready to begin looking inside in a gentle, I hope, my prayer is that it's gentle and safe, and just to start to look inside instead of looking outward, instead of looking for it in external things that we do, that we've been conditioned to do innocently. We do it, you know, in a person, in a partner, in a job, in you know, how I look, and even the body. And what is the one thing, you know, I just realized it's painful. That's all. Not because I'm a spiritual person. You know, I don't talk about this stuff because I'm very spiritual, and just these things don't matter, and it's not that. It's just, I noticed that it's painful. It's a world of suffering when I hang my whole hat on these external things, when I hang my whole happiness on things that change and shift all the time, on my partner. Like, I'll be happy if he's happy, or I'll be happy if I have this job, or I'll be happy if I have this thing. It's like, well, it's a constant moving target. And I never had any place to rest, and I didn't have anywhere else to go but to just, okay, I surrender. I'm going to look inside. And because that is the safest place to rest, is, you know, coming home to the heart, coming home to the truth that is inside. And so that's what yoga, sex, and death is designed to do.
How do you guide people to believe that coming home to the heart is a safe place if they don't have experiential knowledge that it is, especially if they're trauma informed?
That is, you said the number one word there, experience, to have their own direct experience of it. And that's what the course is designed to do. It's like, don't believe me. My path is my path. My life is not meant for you. It's meant for me. What is yours? And so it's designed through different experiences to hopefully connect you to have your own experience of what that is. By the end of the course, it's like, I haven't met one woman yet, not one. And I've been teaching this course since 2014, who on the other end has not said, I know, I have an experience now of my own heart, my own voice, that truth, that peace that is inside, that can't be found anywhere else. And that's what yoga is. That's what yoga does. And I don't just teach asana, which means postures. I teach different kinds of yoga, like mental yoga. We do mental yoga. We do emotional yoga. It's all different types of yoga that we do in there. And a lot of it is kinds of yoga that aren't so mainstream. And so that it's, when you were talking earlier, Jory, about moving from a place of believing all of these stories to moving outside of them, like taking ownership and responsibility, to me, what I see that as a shift from being a victim of your life to owning your life and feeling that empowered.
I was just going to say the word empowered. You took it out of my mouth. One of the words I use a lot is agency.
Yes.
I love the word agency to remind ourselves, wait, I have choice here, and I can take aligned action from that choice. And I can do so based on what feels good to me and what my authentic desire is guiding me towards. And we forget we have agency because we are subscribing to these other narratives or belief of I'll be happy when other things get fulfilled before me, or letting go of the narrative of it's selfish for me to take care of myself. That's when women really get stuck on.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So empowerment, agency, right? These are easier said than done, but integral to living a fulfilled life.
Yeah, well, it's like nobody taught me how. Nobody showed me how. Nobody gave me the tools to say, let's sit down, let's get quiet, let's feel what's in your body. Let's be here, be home in your body, because there's wisdom there and it can show you if you listen. Nobody taught me how to do that. And so, they didn't know themselves. Nobody taught them. And so that's what I mean by the disruptor. It's like the first one to stop the train and look inside and listen. Like, how do I do that? Sometimes when I talk to groups, somebody will raise their hand and be like, I hear what you're saying, but it sounds so far away. Like, I don't even really know what you're saying when you say listen. And that's what the yoga is for. That's what the exercise is. That's what embodiment is for. All of the things that we do in Yoga, Sex, and Death, it's all designed for you to have that experience yourself of what that is, because that's yoga. That's yoga. It's coming back home. It's coming back home to the body. It's coming back home to that intimacy of the quality of your own emotions and your mind and how it's all connected. And then are you willing to look at what's honest inside of yourself and the stories that you tell about yourself, to yourself, about the world, about other people, and then be willing to question all of it, to question it. And that is where the death of identity goes, because if I'm not these things, if I'm not this person, if I don't have my deeply held, cherished beliefs that I
Mhm.
believe that I am. If I didn't have those things, then who am I? And
Yeah.
the ego innocently, right? That innocent ego that I make friends with and am at peace with will come up and do its thing and say, don't do it. What's on the other side is terrifying. You need me. You need me here to hold up this whole thing. And it will come and do its best and throw everything at you. And you can see it and thank it for sharing its life with you and just keep questioning. Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? That's the question. And that is the question that in Yoga, Sex, and Death, we sit in that question. I create a space for people to look inside and ask those questions of themselves, have experiences and ask those questions of themselves. Is it true? Is what I'm believing true? Because if you're
So
suffering,
powerful to be curious about that.
and it's just a way out of suffering. It's that simple. That's all. And
Yeah.
it's not to be spiritual. It's not to be anything other than honest.
Yeah. What is the sex component that you have in there? If the death is about our ego death and those, letting go of those rules or expectations or beliefs that are no longer in alignment, what's the other component?
Well, and also I want to say about the death part, it is a lot about the ego death. And then also we do get into the actual death of the physical body and what the Tibetan Buddhist teachings say about what happens when you die. And we practice that. We practice the death of the physical
Death
body.
meditation.
Yes.
Ultimate non-attachment.
Yes. So there it is, the theme of letting go, intimacy and letting go. And so the sex part is learning about ourselves as sexual beings and what is inside of us that's blocking our capacity for pleasure, capacity to be in the body. Again, it's coming back to the body. So what we do is we learn some basic yogic foundations, like we're working with energy and the breath and the body. And then we take those and it's like, how does all of that apply to sex? How does all that apply to intimacy with myself and another person? Physical intimacy with another person, energetic intimacy with another person, mental, emotional intimacy, and then ultimately spiritual, meaning beyond just the self, beyond the body, into this a sense of oneness and the direct experience of that. And so in order to have that experience that a lot of us say we want, right? We want to have this communion with another person. We want intimacy. And it's also scary because it means dropping the mask of this person that has it all together and this person, this role. And so what we do in the sexuality aspect is we look at the shadow. You said the word shadow earlier and I loved it. I'm like, okay. We look at those masks. We've got to be willing to name them and see ourselves and the ways that we have been protecting ourselves and armored ourselves. All of that, I talked about dissociation and I talked about the numbing and being disembodied. Well, if you want that kind of intimacy with another person, which the women that come to me, they do. They want that with their partners. And it's like, okay, well, then let's look at where we are blocking ourselves from it first, innocently. Yeah. And we've just been believing that that's what we need to do to get love. That's what we need, is hold up this whole, I need to be perfect. When actually the opposite is the thing that brings connection, is the putting the weapons down, meaning dropping the masks. But we've got to be able to see them first, right? Because they're so we walk around like this, like with our,
Yeah.
thinking that the way that we see the world without question, we don't question it. And we think this is the right way. And
Right.
only when we get a little bit of space and we learn tools like awareness practices to be able to like look at ourselves and, oh gosh, see the mask, that there's a mask here and it's a lens by which I see the world. But then when I have the awareness to look at it, there's some space and I realize I am not this mask. I can put it down and put it back on. I can wear it. It's just, are you wearing the mask or is the mask wearing you? And that whole mask piece is central to knowing yourself as a sexual person, knowing to releasing those hardened parts, learning to soften in our bodies, learning to be in our bodies and experience the pleasure that we say we want. We start here with our own bodies, because there's no way you can open to that kind of unconditional love and heart space and intimacy with another person if you don't want to see yourself, if you don't want to see the quote unquote ugly parts of yourself.
Right.
How can you accept that in someone else? How can I be the lover? How can I be the person that is able to embrace my partner in all of their parts, with all of their shadowy aspects, when they're not at their best, when there's parts of them that I just want to run from and reject and say no to? That's what I do to myself. If I'm doing it to them, I'm doing it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can embrace those parts of myself and integrate it and realize the wisdom that's there in all of the things that I've been pushing down my whole life, just give it some space to breathe, let it air out, ventilation. And then I can make the love that I've been deeply longing for my whole life. So that's the sex piece. And also there's a lot of death in that, right? Because
Sure.
that, orgasm, the French call is the little death. And it's those moments, those portals, like I was saying, of timelessness, of just no mind, the heart, love. Who would you be without your story? And
I ask that question all the time. And
that's it.
That's it. Who would you be without your story? And to me, there's a follow-up with that of what is the secondary benefit you're gaining by not letting go of your story?
Have you heard of Byron Katie?
Oh, yes. I've been on retreat with her. Yes.
Me too, several times. So that is what I do. We do the work.
Love the work. Yes.
Oh my God. That is my central practice. Oh, Jory. Oh my gosh. I can't.
Yes.
We're getting in. So
I know. And when I almost commented on it when you asked, is it true? It's the first of the 4 questions. Is it true? How do I know it to be true? How do I feel when I believe it to be true? And who would I be without this story? It's central to what I teach. Is it's not about the thing, it's how you relate to the thing.
Yes.
Fill in the blank. It's the thing. It's whatever it is that you are in reaction to because you've been in a habit, or you've been conditioned, or you are operating out of fear or anxiety to react in a certain way. And when we can strip back that, it's just this. There's this phrase in mindfulness of it's this, just this. Yeah. Or even the practice of equanimity. It's not meaning to be a zombie to whatever's arising. It's having the wisdom to accepting radical acceptance of what's here without reaction or needing to change it, and to say, it's just this.
It's just this. It's just
so much easier said than done. And this is why I believe this is, mindfulness is the answer to everything, because it's rooted in all of these practices that all wisdom, I believe, comes from, which all at the root is starting with stillness.
Oh, yes. So
I just want to hang out with you all day.
I know. Oh my gosh. Amazing. Yeah, that's so great. Me too. We could just go for hours, but this is it. We do the work in the retreat. We do a lot of it. Yeah. And to me, the work is mental yoga. I had been studying yoga for many years, different traditions. When I came to the work of Byron Katie, it was like, so I saw it through that lens of yoga. I'm like, what? This is it. This is Yana yoga.
For those who want to learn more about Byron Katie, I recommend her book, Loving What Is. That's kind of her, the route you can find the most about. And the work is a process in which she guides people in questioning their beliefs. That it's not what's happening that's causing you suffering, it's how you're thinking about what's happening that's causing you suffering. And that's the challenge that we're up against, is how we're thinking about it. So to me, when I hear you say mental yoga, it's stretching our patterns, our responses, our belief systems, our reactions, our habits, and doing it intentionally.
Yes. I mean, the cause of suffering is the grasping, right? And the grasping, not necessarily to external things or people. Yes. And the fundamental grasping is the grasping to our thoughts.
Yes.
And noticing the relationship to the thing. And then just questioning it. And who would you be without it? And that's yoga, who would you be without it? Just basking in awareness in the present moment, no past, no future, just aware of the abundance and the joy of life. That's who I'd be without it. And it's all just a mental concept and just, more stuff until it's realized for me, until I have my own experience of it. It's just another thing somebody tells me. And so I just feel very passionately, not to give people answers, but to ask questions so that they have a space, and to create a space for them to do it safely, to go inside. And, we do the work of Byron Katie, we do shadow work, we do embodiment practices, and it's all very specifically timed and curated to gently guide somebody through the process of who are you without your story.
I love it. I love it, Susan. I know that you're calling in from India, but aside from being across the world, how can people find you and work with you? What is the best resource to get connected?
Samasaracenter.com is our website, and that's SAMARASA, Samasara Center, CENTER.
What does Samarasa mean?
Samarasa literally means, the literal translation is one taste, but it just really is a state of being where, to the awakened person, to the awakened state, everything tastes of the bliss of the divine in many different flavors. So it's all one, and in many different flavors. So
I love that.
We account for the individual, as well as, just as the oneness that pervades all of the multitude of forms. So samasaracenter.com is the website to go to, and I have all of my upcoming events. Our next retreat is June 3rd through the 10th in Lake Atitlan, Guatemala, in an absolutely beautiful resort. The lake is so stunning, and it has its own magic and its own field that holds us in the work. So I live there for part of the year, a few months out of the year, when I'm teaching and doing retreats there. So you can also find us on Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram. Samasara Center is our handle. I would love to, you can reach me. You can reach out to me on Instagram. You can email me, Susan at samasaracenter.com. But our website and Instagram are the places to go for what's coming up. And the next,
and we'll have those links in the show notes as well. So it'll be easy access for our listeners. Yes,
I invite you to come. I invite you to do your work with me and with an amazing group of women. This next retreat is just for women. I do 2 every year, one just for women, and then one co-ed at the end of the year. So the one coming in June is just for women. So I just want to mention that.
And where, do you know the dates and where the co-ed one will be?
As of right now, it's scheduled to also be in Lake Atitlan on November 4th. So that's what's on tap. November 4th for the co-ed, and then June 3rd for the women only, both in Lake Atitlan.
Do you have couples attend that one for the co-ed one?
Yes.
I can imagine that's pretty powerful for couples to do that.
It's very profound. What we do is we question our beliefs around men and women.
Beautiful.
So yeah, we focus.
Susan,
we really focus there.
I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I had the sense as soon as you and I just started chit-chatting, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. And this feels so aligned. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you for your time today and waking up so early.
Oh, my pleasure.
You don't look like you just woke up. So I appreciate you doing what you have done to be able to share with us all today. And like I said, those links will be in the show notes. To all the listeners, I really hope that this spoke to you. I believe that, so much of the people who I bring onto the podcast are sharing their wisdom through their own lens and own language. But as I often say, it's just different doors into the same room. And we are seeking to get into the room of contentment and satisfaction and authenticity and wakefulness and feeling good, because that's what we want, to be feeling good and healthy relationship, primarily with ourselves and of course with those that we care deeply about. And I so value all of the heart-centered entrepreneurs that I connect with. And it's just, we're all doing the same thing, which is guiding ourselves first and foremost, and those who want to come on the journey to say, how can I live with just a little greater ease or flow or joy or contentment, or knowing it's got to be better than this. So I encourage, step into the unknown, because that's really where you get to create the life that you seek. Easier said than done. That's why we have guides like Susan and I.
We have guides. Yes, there's guides, there's support, there's help. And I just really appreciate the work that you're doing and creating spaces like this so that people can hear it in a multitude of ways, different ways to say it, different paths. You just find yours. That's the most honest you can be in this life. It's just, what is it for you? And you have a space for, people to come and do that. And I just appreciate it so much. Thank you. Wow. Thank you for having me and giving me the space and creating this opportunity for me to be able to share this with others. You are very welcome. Very, very welcome. And everyone, I hope that this spoke to you. If it does, please share it with someone who you know needs to hear it. Give a rating, review, so we can spread the word of Journey Forward, because there's no destination we're trying to reach. It really is about the journey. And it's, like you mentioned earlier, one breath, one step at a time. That's all we need to be facing in the direction of our desires. That's the way that we get there. So thank you so much. And I hope all of you got exactly what you needed to hear at the right time out of this conversation. And all the listeners, take care and be well.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat. Visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.